Chris, great interview with on last night. Good job.
Thank you.
Good evening, Robert.
Hi, Ray. Good to see you again.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Zoom Test Kitchen. I'm Jeff Widgren, your host, and we meet here every Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock Eastern. Sometimes we have some special days, and this is one of those days where we have some special guests and special event to talk about, which was, out of our boundaries as far as rocket launching, in our boundaries as far as production, and we're going to go over them both. We're just going to have a good time, and it's a relaxed environment. It's a live workshop as well, and we can get into the live workshop after our presentation, discussion, questions that you may have to the folks who worked on the rocket launch as well. But it was advertised as oh-media.com, which was the main page, and has all kinds of information on it, and links to YouTube, and it has a YouTube channel of all kinds of different packages, and the actual broadcast, which was just over, I think, 2.5 hours. And it was a tremendous coming together for sure. I think one of the biggest representations that most everybody walked away from is all these virtual friends that we've had for the last 2 years finally got to meet, give hugs, handshakes, give each other hell here and there, and just had a really, really great time. So our special guests today are numbered larger than I was anticipating even, is John Preto, who's our rocket builder. And with that, welcome, John. So glad to have you here.
Happy to be here, Jeff. Thank you.
You bet. And the other one who was a close assistant in many ways, some things I'm probably not even aware of, but who made the graphic as far as advertising the Zoom Test Kitchen today, is Keenan Campbell. And so welcome, Keenan. Glad to have you here as well.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it. I'm glad to be here.
You bet. And there are many others. Let me see if I can just kind of go down the list here real quick. Let's see. John, you got Keenan. We've got... these are going to be the ones I know of. If I make any mistakes, please let me know. But Chris Fenwick is here in the Zoom Test Kitchen, maybe for the first time. Is that right, Chris?
I've popped in a couple of times. I sneak in the back.
Yeah, cool. So glad to have you. I had the pleasure of taking on a role last minute that Sky asked me to, was capturing some behind the scenes, and which, unbeknownst to me, got me the opportunity to work with Chris quite a bit, actually, because it wasn't just about turning on the cameras live. It was, building these packages and kind of taking everything that's going into Chris's brain and putting it on a SD card. And
you were totally clutch, Jeff. It was awesome. We really needed you, and you showed up like an angel. It was awesome.
Yeah, thanks, man. It was a great experience working with such a pro as yourself and the others as well. So we've got that was Chris Churig. I'm not sure for sure. If you had involvement, I apologize for not knowing that. Colin is here. He was out there. He even is this is the Colin who launched a rocket as well, right? And but certainly had. I think he was also sitting at the
I don't have great
table.
audio today, so bear with me if I just hang out in the background. But thanks for your help in retrieving my rocket, actually. That was quite an adventure in and of itself.
Yeah, no question. And David Brady out of New York. Great to meet David. Actually, my wife and I are heading to New York again in April, and we'll get to
a couple weeks
connect again. But yeah, what a blast. And Jason, Jeff Keithley, Jeffrey Powers, Jesse Mills. You see him down the list. Josh Kaufman. Oh, goodness, who else has shown up here?
You can't forget about,
of course.
You mentioned Sky, our executive
Sky
producer.
Was the executive producer, and
well, Jeff, you should tell that story. You called me the day we're loading in.
Yeah, so the week before the event, my wife and I traveled to Provo, Utah, which is where our twin sons are attending college there at BYU. and wanted to not only visit them, but one of them had a special event that we wanted to be a part of as well. And so we did that. We left Kansas City on Wednesday, got there Thursday night, spent Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Literally, we were loaded into our vehicle to head back to Kansas City. And it had been in my head, for a number of days. And I just turned to my wife and I said, hey, honey, I said, we're 5 days away and I'm 5 hours away. Can we just go south to Las Vegas instead? And she said okay to that. And luckily, it helps that her mother lives there as well. So she had family and so forth as well. So, yeah, we headed down. I got on the phone. I called Sky, and quite honestly, I didn't know whose role was who.
Well, I spent the first 2 minutes trying to talk you out of coming, because the last thing we needed was to try to entertain somebody, because we just didn't have the bandwidth. But you showed up, brother, with a camera, with energy, with a car. You were the taxi human. You just continued to give, and yes, you were the one that got the shot all the way to the top. We'll talk about it.
Yeah, that was kind of cool. It was fun. I did. I mean, I often, when I can, especially when I'm in a vehicle versus a plane, I'll carry my, some gear, not a lot of gear, but it was enough. And it took a little bit of a beating, but it's still working. I'm using the camera right now in my studio. So anyways, it was a good time.
And Jeff, if I can, I just want to make sure we don't forget Josh Kaufman. He produced some segments.
Oh, yeah.
He's here. Jeffrey Powers handled all the YouTube interactions and stuff. I learned more about YouTube watching Jeffrey take care of the YouTube. And then Tuomo flew in from Finland to design and build and basically tell the whole story of the show with the graphics package. The whole story of the day.
The first timer in the kitchen.
And tying it all together through the X. We can't leave the X out.
And Jeff Keithley was our EIC making everything work. So it was a giant undertaking by a whole bunch of people. And you pull any one of those pieces of the puzzle out, and it tumbles down.
Absolutely. It was amazing because I had a fun role, and at times it was really busy. And then other times I kept myself busy, but there were certainly times where I could just observe and see some of these guys just show their magic. It was absolutely amazing. I mean, these are, I don't know, 4 or 5 major companies, if you will, folks that are very, individually experienced with their own teams and so forth, but they didn't bring their teams. We heard it, I think Noah was the one who said, you don't have your teams with you, so it was kind of all the executives, if you will, coming together and really shining and pulling it all together and getting it all connected, and it was amazing. On a dry lake bed south of Las Vegas that had absolutely not a spot of internet the day we needed it, right? The day before we needed it, although it had it a few days before. so it, caught everybody, but the solutions that we'll talk about today that we, were able to achieve and so forth were pretty amazing at that. So I am, we talked just a little bit with John and Keenan, and I'm going to really kind of hand the time over to you guys. You're both co-hosts in the sense of being able to share and so forth without any pause. I'd love to see, I'm sure everybody would love to see, a lot of photos, some video clips. Literally, this is a bit unstructured, much more, relaxed than a full-on program, top to bottom. And I really just want to have some fun with this and have some open dialogue and the whole bit. And anybody who has questions, feel free. You can put them in chat if you'd like. If you'd rather verbalize it, just raise your digital hand. And I've got that on the toolbar today. I turned off all the reactions in Zoom. And when you turn off the 2 reaction switches, you get the raise hand button right there on the toolbar versus nested within the menu itself. So raise your hand and we'll just have you chime in and ask those questions as well. So John or Keenan, I'm not sure who wants to kick it off, but please feel free to do so.
I'll start it off. Thank you, Jeff. Hello, my name's John Pratt. I didn't know your protocol on your show, so I was being quiet to let you do the preamble. We've got an amazing amount of crew. I didn't know we were going to have so many crew here today.
I know.
So, born and raised in Las Vegas, went to school for engineering and business, came back out and started my own computer networking company, and then got early into production. This is in 1990, and then did a ton of broadcast work. I was the SGI, Silicon Graphics dealer for Southern Nevada, and then we did a lot of work in broadcast suites back in the day. But we got into streaming in the mid 90s, and so I had a business plan for streaming that was funded by Wall Street. We raised $70 million for that company called Hello Network, and we developed our own compression algorithm, our own platform, player, server, and client side, did PGA, LPGA, DNC convention, Kelsey Grammer, Joe Walsh, did tons and tons of productions in the mid 90s. And so we were a little ahead of our time in that regard. And then, following Alex Lindsay on Twitter, I saw that he posted that he was going to just go on Zoom and talk. And I was on from the day number one and met most of you guys over there. And parallel to that, I've been in the rocket hobby for 50 years. There's a there's a high-powered version of the hobby. Most of you guys know Estes, the little rockets that you buy at the Walmart and the Hobby Lobby, etc. But you can get these high-powered rockets as well at many of those places that go all the way up to these larger rockets. And so I did the very first live stream from an amateur rocket in 2001. I don't have that video, but vidrock.com, we broadcast that one live a million years ago, and we had to do an 8-mile Wi-Fi shot back to my father's house in Boulder City. And so that was my level 3 certification for that rocket. And then when the economy slowed down, 2008, I didn't pay my national dues to Tripoli and didn't know that they strip away all your certifications. And so I had to start all over again from 0 all the way up to 3. And I was building a rocket, and then a lot of the boys came out to my house in October for NAB, which was canceled back then. And the following weekend, we were shooting one of these high-powered rockets out on the lake bed, and Chris and the boys said, "Why don't we broadcast this live?" I said, "No, it's impossible. We can't get any internet down at the dry lake bed." And then it just grew from there. That was October of last year, and so this project grew and grew and grew. Keenan and Fenwick came on board, and then 4 other people came on board, and 8 other people came on board. I think we have close to 60 volunteers in our Discord, and I think we had 23, 24 people on the property. Nobody got paid. They got paid $1 Tesla dollar bill. That's what they got paid, which I think is really cool, from Serbia. And I'm going to let the guys talk to you about the production, because I was there to build the rocket. I started building in November, finished it a week ahead of time. The rocket did a fabulous job. We can go over a little bit about that. But I think the real story here for your audience, Jeff, is how we pulled this production off and the components and everything that was involved. If somebody was to pay for this, I'm guessing probably $300,000 production. Some people say more, but we had a huge staff out in the middle of nowhere and pulled this thing off and worked on it since November all the way through March. So 5 months worth of work. And then Keenan, I can pull up the network topology map, and then you can start talking about our operations. So.
Yeah. So, one of the biggest takeaways, Jeff, that your audience will really jump on is, we did the entire production planning for this project on Zoom. We used Zoom every day. We originally started in OH after hours, and it quickly became kind of a time suck, and it pulled every time John or I or Sky or Fenwick got into the room, the after hours crowd turned into space. And we were trying to be mindful of the community and everybody else's projects. So what we did early on is we created our own Zoom room, and it literally ran 24/7 for 5 months. And, you know, we pulled, and it's really 87 people are on our Discord. We added a few toward the end, and about 20 to 25 on the lake bed. There was literally no internet. There was hardly any cell signal even to use. Fenwick had to send his wife a message, and we had him standing on an RV holding his iPhone just to give her good night message. But, you know, there were so many people behind the scenes. And then, you know, some of our office hours community, the one I really want to recognize is Nigel, who is the CEO of Bravos. We were trying to get these really nice shirts to have this professional broadcast. And Nigel says, what do you guys need? Oh, you need a little money? Okay, I got you. And his company sponsored him. And then, you know, Jen Carter designed the shirts, and suddenly now we have uniforms. And yeah, there you go, Jeff. You have one too. So there's a lot of people that didn't get recognized that are behind the scenes. That it was an amazing production. The crew was just unbelievable, even on the ground. And the one thing that I took away from it, when you meet somebody or you talk to somebody on the telephone or via email, you don't have that FaceTime. And this Zoom screen, when I saw Chris Fenwick for the first time, I always said to people, nice to see you. Because it's not, I'm not meeting you. I met you 2 years ago. Now I get to see you in real life. And we next time we do this, we're going to put a Zoom box, so you have to stand behind it first, and then we're going to walk around it. We forgot to do that prop. Our prop master
with a name badge, so I can remember what your actual name is, Kevin. I mean, Keenan.
It was super funny, you know, David Brady. I didn't realize his hands were as big as they are, and when he shook my hand, it was like a gorilla. Tuomo gave me a hug, and Tuomo's like 7 feet tall. So those certain things that you don't get, that, you know, you see me from this big, and it was such a cool human interest piece. And we had to build a network. We built 2 networks. We had 2 Starlinks. So the technical challenges were monumental for any production. The biggest takeaway from it is everybody was there as a volunteer. So we brought in $500,000 worth of horsepower that cost the production nothing, just for the sake of community. And I will tell you, the best moment in my life is when I saw little Johnny Preto, and I call him little Johnny because when his rocket lit, he was immediately an 8-year-old boy standing next to his dad. Literally, that man went from a 59-year-old man to an 8-year-old in 5 seconds. When that rocket, I mean, he was a foul-mouthed 8-year-old, but anyway, he shot. When that rocket lit, you saw that was all worth the community. And, you know, everybody says, well, it was just a rocket launch, but to that one guy, all of us being there to share in that 8-year-old launching an Estes with his dad, it would, like Fenwick said it the best on Tony Mobley's show, we would do it again every week, every second. And I think that every single person, Jeff, you included, would do this every time. And it was a crazy dust storm. I still have dust in my sinuses. It hasn't got cleaned out yet, but we would all do it again. So I guess we can just freeform it and just throw questions, I guess, would probably be the best idea, because we have Sky and Chris here that can answer and talk about the production, and Tuomo with the graphics for sure. So whatever you feel's good for the group.
Well, and, you know, I'll talk about the rocket side of it for a second and let everybody know this wasn't just us sitting out in the desert as a crew with one rocket. This was an event with, John, maybe you can help me out, 150 people locally, multiple RVs, trailers, you know, and a lot of rockets going off from what Friday and Saturday was our witness, and I think you said it might have been too windy. They were at least planning on continuing to shoot on Sunday as well, but we were gone by then. But yeah, it was a large event, and you know, there was a passing crowd that stopped all the time and talked to John or Perry or whatnot, you know, while they were building, you know, because people out there, they don't see 12-foot rockets, you know, being built to be launched and so forth. And so it was a pretty cool thing. And what's so cool was I've got the other day, I think it was 2 days ago, on my Facebook, I saw this post, and there were rockets, and I'm like, who is this? And it was happened to be one of the kids my sons went to high school with, and I think his mom had posted some photos, and it was this college group that he's with at K-State, and they were building and launching rockets. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me! It almost felt like it was an ad in a sense, because it knew what I had been up to, and therefore it showed up, but it wasn't that at all. Him and I have had some dialogue. I sent him a link to this meeting today. He couldn't make it time-wise, but he looked at the video and the whole bit. So it's kind of cool to know that, you know, younger and older generations are just still have this interest, and I'll readily admit it was. I come from the flying world. I'm a private pilot and love to fly. I've done a lot of RCs and RC helicopters and so forth. I didn't categorize until I got to the event and started seeing it, rockets being all that exciting, comparatively, you know, to what I've done anyways. But man, it's incredible. I mean, there's not an airplane or RC in the world that has the kind of power that those rockets have, and it's pretty fascinating at that. So yeah, it was a really, really good time. So yeah, I have a question for Tuomo though. Do you have your stuff back? You came with the most and left with the least. Are you wearing the glasses?
Nope, not yet. I haven't connected Noah about that yet. So he found my glasses, so he has them. So I will just need to ask him to send them over.
Yeah.
So I lost some stuff, but it was it was just the cost of the trip.
Sure. And part of the cost that we were packing up in our second dust storm, right? The first one was Wednesday night, but Saturday midday. And John called it. He saw the forecast. He knew that, hey, after we launch, we better get the heck out of here. And we didn't quite really take urgency to that until it started blowing. And part of the scramble, one of the tents, I think it was, one of the canopies swallowed up your glasses at the end of the day.
True, I was hugging it like this so that the other guys could zip it up, and I think I had my glasses over here, and when I was hugging the thing, I'm sure that it just fell into the thing. So that's where he found them.
I'm glad they did though, because those were prescription as well, and those are not easy to give up that way. So let's open up the floor if there's questions or whatnot, and then we can go on to videos or photos. I didn't get a chance to convert a lot of my stuff to easy JPEGs. They're still DNG files, so but I will little by little convert a few things and pop some stuff up and so forth. But Sky, you've got your hand up. We'll let you go first.
Well, the two words that are current at the top of mind right now are value and worth. We're now creating the value of what this experience was. And again, John has a spreadsheet and I have a spreadsheet, and they don't match up because as a rocket builder, there are certain expenses. As a production creator, there are different expenses. And the value of a production truck flying in from Texas, the value of a graphics designer coming in from Helsinki, these all have a value. Now, the worth, I reflect back to you and I 2 years ago, Jeff, having long conversations about what is the future? What does the future hold? Now we have the luxury of 2 years now looking backwards and going, well, this happened, then that happened, then this happened. And it's all a leap of faith, isn't it? We don't know. We can't tell what the future is. So the creative concept of doing something in the future of a video production is now before us. But 2 years from now to have this meeting again, it'd be kind of fun to go, well, and then Jeff showed up with his hat and he got a suntan from the eyebrows down, and he got some great video images and captured it for other people to enjoy and share. So I think the value and worth are the two words, and it may not be all financial, may not be all dollars.
Yeah. Well, I think, that I don't know where the exact link is to it, but the long version that you guys put out of everybody's, recorded feedback, you know,
to me, that was the report card. I call it the report card.
It was absolutely the tell-all. You know, I think I don't remember if it was that video. It may have been, but anyways, I think I wrote back John and I said, man, I could have almost had tears in my eyes just because it was that meaningful, right? And I'm not alone in that.
That was just the dust from the dust storm. That's all that was.
That's right. But I think it was one of those things. You know, it was a rocket launch, and it wasn't about the rocket. Well, it kind of was about the rocket to a degree, right? Because it was the trigger.
It was a mountaintop.
A whole lot of people to come together, clamoring together to literally meet, you know, not to arrogantly show off or, you know, anything like that. There was none of that. And the fact is the personalities that, you know, I have gotten to know and we've all gotten to know on office hours and the kitchen and this whole community were exactly the personalities that we met in the desert. You know, I mean, it was pretty amazing that oftentimes, you know, Facebook isn't always so real, right? But I can say that the the communities here have been very, very real in the sense that the personalities, the friendships, and so forth, you know, were a perfect match. I mean, like Fenwick, I don't know if he heard me say it or not, but one of the biggest positives I have, Fenwick, comical, sarcastic. He can be a little tough. When
acerbic is the word you're looking for.
Yeah, to get stuff done, it's like get it done. I mean, you just explained this somewhere. I heard you describe yourself, and it is. It's just I don't have time, right? Let's just get it done. It's not personal, and I mean every bit of that we see online is Chris Fenwick. I mean it was equal on both sides there.
I really want to jump on that, Jeff, because it's the timing. In the heat of battle is not the time to have a communal vote up of a conversation. And we were physically in the moment of making something happen. Now, before that, there's lots of opportunity to ruminate and ponder on concepts. But in the heat of battle, and this is where I appreciate Keenan so much, he's a first responder. He has to make choices and decisions that are life-changing. And consequently, there's a time for conversation and there's a time for decision-making.
No. Yeah,
that was definitely one of the things, Jeff, that there's a lot of us that aren't media professionals. You know, we know Fenwick's a director, Sky's a producer. We know that. They know their job. They do it. They get paid to do it every single day. But then you bring in people like me, Jack, and others that we're not in the business, if you want to say it that way. We've learned over the last 2 years, so there was language barriers. I do things differently than Sky does, than Chris does. So that interaction of all of us, like I'm an ops guy. I just want to go, get it done. Tell me what you need to do. Leave me alone. I'll do it. If I can't do it, I'm going to come and tell you, hey, director, sorry, Fenwick, I need help. I need more resources. I need more people. I need more money. I don't know what I need. But some people, the personalities are slightly different. And some of us are stronger, some of us are more passive. So it was cool to see that kind of that gentle wave and us get our groove, and the whole team just got it done. That was the end game. Was, we had hiccups along the way, we had internet issues, we had all these issues, and when you see how we kind of bobbed and weaved, and Jeff, you were lucky, you got to experience the BTS side of it. Like everywhere I looked, you had a camera taking a picture. So I'm sure those are going to be sold to like the Inquirer or something. I think you took like 52,000 pictures in a day.
Yeah, there are a lot of quite a few pictures, quite a few video clips and so forth, and it was fun. I mean, some of my favorite. I don't know who has seen it yet. I don't think it's been published, but. Some of my favorite. I know Sky and I saw this together at John's house, and it was just a pan of 2 shoes, and then a fire, and then 2 more sets of shoes, and it was just 3 sets of feet around that little fire pit that we had, and that's all it was. And it was that, it was Saturday morning when we were all freezing our butts off. And then another one of the dog, being held inside of a blanket, and he's looking right at me at the camera. And, just cool things that, go unnoticed to those that are, fervently working on getting this thing up and ready to, go live and be live. But hey, can we real quickly just do a quick description of roles? We have described the executive producer was Sky. Sky, and do a short description for those who aren't in the business.
Well, I will.
What does that mean?
We are creating a product. That's the part that people are hard to, and unfortunately, all of us have been forced into being an audio engineer, a TV engineer, a compression engineer, and doing this on Zoom. It may not be your skill set, but for the last 2 years, you've had to wear way too many hats. I really appreciate Jeff Keithley said, yeah, Sky, you're the head cat herder. And that was kind of it, because as Keenan mentioned, there were times when we had to make choices, but we still needed to move forward. And it wasn't the best choice, but it was the right now choice. Now, moving forward, we hope to make the right choice. So again, that Josh came in making content as a producer, as packages were created for the roll-in of a 1 hour piece of content. Early days, it was like, well, is it a documentary? Oh, wait a minute, maybe we should do this live. Those take different skill sets and different requirements. And so Jeff came in, and I'll let, so as an executive producer, the minutia of all of the details, but I don't have to understand all of it. I just have to trust the department heads. So I'm going to go back to Chris next.
Yep.
So I can go through it pretty good, I think. So Sky's the executive producer. He makes the final decisions about all things creative. He answers to only one person, and that's the client. And if this was a film that he was producing, his client would be his stakeholders, his shareholders, the people that are putting up the money for it. In this instance, his only client is John. We all serve at the pleasure of John Preto. We're here to make this rocket launch look good. Underneath him, we had Josh and Noah. We're producing segments, and then I was the director. So I'm allegedly, picking the best things for everybody to look at. But I absolutely rely on all the technical support. So I got Jeff, easy there. So Jeff and Doug were handling all the video switching matrix. We had audio Greg, and help me, what's Greg's last name? Greg Blott? Yeah.
Blott.
So Greg was amazing. He is a dying breed of what I call a broadcast audio engineer. Sitting here with us, I mentioned, Jeffrey was totally in charge of all of the YouTube stuff, and so much to learn about that. Brady, what would you call your title?
I think it was engineer by definition. I was jack of all trades. I laid back where I didn't need to kick in, and I pitched in where I could.
Extra hands whenever you needed them, for sure.
My one claim to fame is the logo designed on a barroom napkin over many pints of Guinness. So there you go.
So you have this whole broadcast thing going on, but in concert with all of that, you have this logistical nightmare, and it's a nightmare out in the desert. So you got Keenan was basically, he's the project manager, and the project is really the launch, right? So he's got to make sure that John's got all of his stuff together, that John gets all of his stuff to the lake bed, that we get the rocket up, and that we get it up safely. He also took on the title of safety manager, safety officer. So are we doing anything stupid? Is anybody going to get hurt? So we get the rocket up in the air safely, and then Keenan also has to get it back for us. And he was working in very close quarters with Jack and Chris Widener. Those guys were building our camp and making sure everything was wonderful. And then the other person who's not here, but Eric Price was an angel sent from on high. He contacts John early on, and he goes, hey, I'll handle all the food. What? I'll handle all the food. He sends out a request for some money, and it was way too little. But he was just like, just pay me this much and I'll take care of. There was, I believe, 6 meals that he did between Thursday night and Wednesday midday, and just showed up with this like giant tent, this giant grill, and he and his son, who are scouts, they cooked for everybody. We always had food for us. It was amazing. So there's all these little intricate things going on, and then you have Nigel. I think it was mentioned earlier. He and his wife were there, and it was like, you need more shade. Boom. He's off to Costco, back with 2 big giant pop-ups. You need more buckshot to make your rocket fly straight. He gets a call at, what time did you call him, John? Like 9 o'clock at night?
About 6.
So there's this very interesting, I'm just going to tell a little backstory here. There's this very interesting thing about a rocket where if it's not balanced right, it's not going to fly right, okay? And John will tell you in more detail. But the motor, the actual motor that goes in the rocket, you can just, call somebody up and go, hey, ship it to my house. But the shipping will cost as much as the motor. So there's a guy in Vegas who sells rocket parts. And he shows up with this giant trailer, shows up on Friday afternoon. And so you order your engine from him. And then because of the rules of the rocket world, John has to assemble this motor himself. And it's a whole bunch of things he's got to do. John's never built a motor this big. So this guy sits with him. And he's like, nope, don't do that. Oh, more of that. Okay, put in one of those. Okay, now push all that stuff in. So like he's got to watch all this. But it doesn't happen until 4 o'clock Friday afternoon. So at the end of assembling this motor and sliding the motor into the rocket, John's like, my center of gravity is wrong, which means it's not going to fly well, right? So at 8, 9 o'clock at night, he calls Nigel and he's like, help. I need you to find me buckshot. Go to, where do you go? Bass Pro. Go to Bass Pro. To be fair, I don't know that Nigel's ever been in a Bass Pro. But Nigel shows up at Bass Pro and he's like, I'm needing something called buckshot. Can you help me? And so he buys a 25-pound bag of buckshot and delivers it to John's house. And I think we have some pictures of John working on the rocket in the middle of the night before the launch because the center of gravity is off.
Well, and that bag of buckshot, keep in mind, I don't know what the size of a gold brick is, but I liken it to it because it was just a small bag that would easily fit just like
25
this.
pounds.
25 pounds. It was crazy dense and heavy. It was wild.
And we cannot, Chris, can you please also talk about telemetry? Because you watched a video and the things that we're learning still, telemetry is half of what we were doing.
Well, the thing about the telemetry is when you're going for records, and we weren't doing a huge record here, we're doing a big rocket really high, but telemetry is half the story. So like in John's next dream, which we'll get to, without the telemetry, you can't achieve the dream. So yeah, you got to shoot a rocket up, but you also have to prove that it went to a certain altitude.
And to be fair, Nigel has been to a Bass Pro when I called him and texted him and said, Nigel, I need it. And he goes, I don't know what it is. He didn't know what we were asking him to buy. And when I said shot, he goes, I don't think I have a firearms card to purchase that equipment. He didn't understand what we were. It was super fun. So, yeah, Nigel and his wife were the MVPs of along with a lot of others.
Well, and I'll add one more role to Eric, who, was like nonstop cooking. When people were sleeping, they were cooking even. But he was the handheld cameraman on Saturday. I mean, he held that thing all morning and did an incredible job as well. And I think it was his first
when he came back in, and exactly, that's what he said. Oh, that was fun. I've never done that before. And we go,
yeah.
Oh.
So besides 1F Jeff and Doug taking care of all of the switching duties, Noah Sargent showed up from Fullerton with a 20-some-odd foot trailer full of camera gear and stuff, and braved the dust of the desert with all of his camera packages. And the wireless camera that Eric was running on Saturday performed amazingly. So they could get in the truck, drive all the way out to the launch pad, which is like 600 feet away from our compound. He could get a signal the whole way, and between the handheld camera, which was at the launch pad, the drones circling around the launch pad, and all the audio that we were getting from the launch pad, we didn't miss a single F-bomb. It was amazing.
That's true.
I want to talk a little bit about the telemetry. So this rocket was simulated at 15,000 feet, which is pretty much out of sight for this size of rocket until the parachute comes out at drogue. So you have to have some sort of way to track this thing. This uses a $400 flight computer. It's actually here. I can go grab it here later and show you guys. And it's a little teeny thing, and it's got GPS, accelerometer, barometric pressure, the charges for the parachutes. It's a really sophisticated little flight computer. And then I had to get my ham radio license in order to operate this thing because it uses 70 centimeter wavelength. And then that transmits down to ground. I've got this picture here. And then it transmits, got an antenna inside the nose cone of the rocket, transmits down to this Yagi antenna that was on a tripod. And then that's fed into a Macintosh. And then we're getting real-time packets down from the rocket. And then we had a parser written by a guy that we cannot name who unsolicited emailed me and said, hey, I looked up the documentation on your flight computer. I wrote this parser for you. I hope it helps. Incredible. And then converted those packets into Tuomo's SPX package. And then Tuomo will show you the rest of the graphics.
Why can't we name him?
The guy that wrote the parser?
Yeah.
We're not supposed to say.
Wow. I did not even know this was a thing.
Because he got hired. He got hired by one of the big rocket companies. That's why.
John, what's the range on that telemetry computer?
70 centimeter at that, it's only like 250 mils. And so, Keenan, what do you think? Probably.
So it was designed to go up to 2 miles vertical. So, radios are line of sight, obviously. So when you're turning them on end, the propagation was better. So it should have covered the whole flight. We had some issues with the transmitter packets and things like that it all comes back to, everybody says, Jeff, the one big thing that I heard a lot is if we just had another day, if we just had another rocket. We really should have shot a rocket to test the rocket before the live show. And the director always said this was a great rehearsal. Our live show was a great rehearsal. And you know what? We pulled it off. Was it perfect? Absolutely not. Tuomo's graphics were phenomenal. Unfortunately, the data coming into him was corrupted, so there were some issues there. But we didn't have a lot of opportunities to test. So next time we'll do much better with that. And it's much more expensive for John.
Which we're okay with.
Whoops. Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to launch this tech tour, Chris, that you have on your YouTube, if you will. It'll give is that okay with you?
Wait, it's got me in it, right?
Yeah.
I'm totally good with that.
Of course he's okay with that.
Let's run this. This will let everybody see everybody and the vehicles and the roles and so forth, and then maybe we can just add to it if there's more questions following that as well. So here we go. There we go.
My name is Chris Fenwick, and I want to give you a walking tour of the OH Space video compound. Come with me. In here we have video control. Sky and I will be taking all of the elements that come to us from the rest of the craftsmen, and we will put together the show, the best version of the show that we can. We can see everything we need to see, we can hear everything we need to hear, and we can talk to everybody we need to talk to. Yep. Next. First off, you need pictures. Noah brought his entire rig here, the trailer, the tents, all the cameras. He's going to make sure they all look good. Also one of our producers. He brought the whole thing. All the pictures will come to us. We're back here with all the generators because all this needs electricity, but this trailer is actually Noah's equipment trailer. We've repurposed it for audio. Inside Noah's trailer is where Audio Greg is set up. Greg is a broadcast audio engineer. It is a lost art. He solves more problems in any given hour than most audio people even know that exist. We are very, very lucky to have him with us. So Greg has all the audio, but in here, 1F Jeff, he's got all the video control.
love that.
So, believe it or not, we'll call this Studio X because the whole video control is in a Tesla X. The last step in the equation is all the graphics. And in here, Tuomo flew in from Finland to tell the entire visual story with graphics on top of all the other video that we're doing. Without a doubt, this is the most remote place I've ever done a show. And in order to get this signal off of this dry lake bed, we're using the Starlink antenna, which is up on top of that RV. They tell me there's another one around here someplace as a backup. I don't even really know. It's unbelievable to me the number of people that have come here to make this rocket launch happen and to cover it. And this is our way of, one, saying thank you to all the miles traveled, but to remember all of the people at home that have allowed these people to come and be part of this crew.
Very cool, very cool. Yeah, just so many efforts. What do you guys call that? The mash pole? Is that what I heard somebody name that? I don't know what they're called, but it was one of the coolest things. I think out of all the tech, that wasn't tech, that was community. That was the community pole for sure. And it got, that video, it was fairly full. It continued to fill up like every space. And there were a few names there that, you know, weren't on site, you know, Mickey and others that, you know, had plenty of involvement and so forth from afar and couldn't make it. But yeah, and that was just on site. And I'll hand it back to you guys to cover, you know, continue to cover everybody, you know, behind the scenes and so forth as well. But love that video.
Well, do you want to cover the graphics real quick?
Yeah, sure. So my role in the project was to come up with the style for the graphics. So that was the first thing, and Chris asked me to join in, and he gave me basically a kind of a script for me to go through, and I read the script through, and I told him that I will come back in two days and give my thoughts, and so I did, and I had. When I read through it and I started to understand what kind of a production are we doing, it started to inspire me, and I couldn't really let it go. So I told them, all right, I'm going to be involved somehow, and I said that I'm going to be doing some kind of a visual design first, and that's what I did. And we discussed, we went through those drafts, and guys were like, all right, looks good, let's do it. And then I started to work on it. And then at some point, we decided I'm going to fly over, be there physically on site during the production, which was great, which was crazy, but great. and I loved it. And the way the system worked was that I have developed this SPX graphics system, which can utilize external data. So for telemetry, it was pretty easy for us to figure out the workflow so that we are receiving data from the rocket down to the base station in the ground, and then that is going to send that over to SPX for the graphics. So we had something like maybe 10 layers of graphics going on at any given moment, and Chris was giving me commands to my ear through comms to trigger out some of the name straps and so on. But then when we went out from the script, I had to take over a little bit by myself, and I started to throw in some content from social media, as we were requesting people to send in their questions and comments. So I started to drop those into the program, and luckily everybody were on board that the camera crew could set their pictures in a way that there was always space in the left side of the screen for the graphic, because nobody really knew when the graphics is going to show up. So they had their shots in a way that it wouldn't bother too much if there was a big graphic on the left side of the screen. And some of those graphics were repurposed from previous projects, because there wasn't really that much time for me, because typically in a broadcast setting, this kind of a project would be several months. And I think I had maybe 2 weeks to come up with the design and then implement everything, fly over and do the thing. so there wasn't really too much time for iteration. So it was basically the first things we managed to make went straight on air. There were some little things there, little hiccups, like the first time you saw the call to action for the social media, it had the wrong hashtag on it. So I had to go open up my Photoshop and fix the thing. And then the next time we saw the social media call to action, the hashtag was correct. And all of this stress was pretty high just a few minutes before the broadcast, because we really didn't have internet connection or cable connection between the telemetry base computer and the graphics, and there wasn't really any time to test anything, to show any graphics to any other people in the production crew. So it was just, here we go, show is starting, let's go, and let's see what happens. And I think it turned out pretty good. And I have to say that when my stress levels started to drop after first few minutes, I was enjoying the show. I was just watching the show. I was triggering graphics. I was having fun. I was laughing out loud, many times. So it was a blast.
And Jeff, you hear me ranting and raving about the right solution and the right now solution, but because we had been on Zoom as a people group and we understood the communications going on, Josh and Jerry and Kyle, they were throwing us these social media because we had a secondary, almost tertiary comms system going with them, and they were feeding us the social media quotes that we were then using as, hey, to the director, this is a thing, let's use it. So again, Zoom saved us.
And Jeff, if I can, I want to clarify one of the things that Tuomo said. Tuomo said, he read the script, he agreed to do it, he did the sort of first pass of the graphics, and at the end of that to get our input. And at the end of that meeting, I said to Tuomo, I said, for the record, Tuomo, this meeting was a waste of time, because the reason I wanted to work with Tuomo on this, and here's the thing, I make a lot of graphics that go on video screens, right? I'm pretty particular. There's very, very few people, maybe nobody, that I would trust implicitly. And when I asked Tuomo to be a part of the project, I said, I want you to be the graphics producer, not the operator who's playing back some graphics that somebody builds and designs. But I want you to look at the show, design the show, produce the show on the graphic layer. And I trust you 100%. If it comes out of your fingers, I'm going to love it. And so we did that. He was very, polite, and he's doing the right thing. But I told him, I said, you don't need to clear things with me. You tell me a graphic's good. So I have a little bit of a background in doing live sports. And back when I used to do sports in the early 90s, the graphics people would sit in the back of the control room in the truck, and I was up in front TDing shows. And when the graphics producer would say, font is good, the director knew that what they have up on their air channel and what is on my program monitor go together, and then he could put the graphic in, insert. And that's all they'd say, insert. They do it quite often without even reading it, because they know that guy's responsible for doing it right. And I told Tuomo, I said, I trust you. So make it beautiful, make it wonderful. Do you do what you do. Tell me when it's good and I'll put it in. So I wanted to make sure that, Tuomo was really special. He's like the friend we don't deserve to have on this production. So it was awesome. It was so gracious and so wonderful that he wanted to be a part of it.
Yeah, I'll say he spent a lot of time in that trailer alone, or that RV alone, working. And it started in John's studio at home, but it didn't stop until the show was over. It was amazing.
But Tuomo's just showed, I just saw it on his screen, he showed what we call the tower. It starts with the OH Space logo in the bottom left, and he presented this plan to us where all the graphics would fly out of that button, and they're super clean. And for those of you that come out of the IT world, like Jeff and I, running Tuomo stuff is all done in HTML and CSS. It runs a web server, and then you can log into that from any web browser and grab those graphics. It's really makes a lot of sense as opposed to a dedicated desktop application to feed into a switcher somewhere. So I think his platform is the graphics of the future for production.
Yeah.
We couldn't have done.
I like to think that as well.
and Jeff, you know,
Yeah.
we can all talk up Tuomo, but our production wouldn't have been at the level. And when Fenwick and John and I talked in October about we should do this like SpaceX or Blue Origin's production, if it weren't for that guy from Finland that chose rockets over ice fishing, it would not have been what we envisioned in October. So Tuomo really, I mean, he totally hit it out of the park with the graphics, but what it did is it elevated our entire production to a level that no one has ever seen in the rocket hobby by tenfold. So we couldn't have afforded to pay him what he was worth.
Yeah, it was the after party that was at John's local pub, and were they the major sponsor, John?
Yeah, he was the primary sponsor. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great American
Yeah,
Pub.
so here's I'll spotlight that, the after party location. I just outside this was the private room, and the doors in the back there. I had gone outside those doors and came across, they call him a TAP, and he's the guy who checks out John's work and certifies them and so forth. And he was the one kind of running part of the show on Saturday, and he talked to me for 10-15 minutes solid of just how thrilled he was. He said, I was told that, you know, production team was coming of some sort. He said, I had no idea what was coming once he saw everybody roll in and set up and so forth. And but he was just thrilled. And that was to that point of, you know, that group, that hobby, you know, and skill and so forth. They've never had, you know, exposure like that, and for them to be able to, you know, it'll be interesting to see and hear from John sometime down the road, you know, if they did in fact, or if you've already talked to them about, you know, embedding some of the videos or using them or whatnot. But they certainly have a whole lot of work to you know, tap into. So it was pretty cool to hear from those guys.
The editorial guy that came by our booth prior to the launch actually sent me an email with a picture, and so I suspect it will be in their magazine. They have a monthly digital magazine. It used to be printed, but nobody prints anything anymore. But this was definitely by far, I've been in the hobby 50 years. There's never been a production like this ever in high-powered rock. Most people don't know, like Chris Fenwick. It's a bunch of older guys that came out of the space age that are quiet engineering types, and their marketing of this hobby is absolutely horrible. And so
I didn't know it existed until 6 months ago. Like back in October when we went for NAB and John was working on his little rocket in the garage. I was like, what the hell are you doing? He goes, oh, it's my rocket. I go, what is this? And he goes, I've been doing this for years. And I started asking him questions about it. I just got fascinated in it. I literally didn't know like grown men did stuff like this. This is just it was just crazy. But yeah, it was an amazing thing. Hey, Jeff, I'm going to say I gotta cut out. I gotta catch a ride, but you guys can go ahead and continue your little chat. But thanks for letting me be a part of this. All right.
Hey, thanks for coming for sure and sharing.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Chris.
So Dan Huber, I did not get to your digital raised hand earlier. Is your question still waning on you?
John actually answered it in the description of everything.
Okay.
But, just a fan, and I remember when you were getting that license, John, and that you were taking that test, and that came out of then some other tests that were created after that, and that was a lot of fun. So that was just the first part of that. But yeah, it was a great. We were watching it at the house. And my wife and daughters were like, what is this? And I go, oh, those are my friends. You know, they're shooting a rocket into space today. They had no idea. They don't know what I do during the day. All right, that's my only comment. Great stuff. Can't wait for the next one.
Thanks, Dan.
Very
Thanks.
cool. Thanks, Dan. So there's more to come, though, right? Sky, I'll pick on you and
Sure.
assume that you're the editor. So
I'm
what's
one
to
of the
come?
editors. We
Yeah.
are developing the next steps, and again, what is the worth and what is the value is kind of the when does it become a business versus a hobby, and that's again what I've learned from this community. We're kind of cross-pollinating. Dan, you were huge support in the Mad in the Kitchen experience. You helped John. You again saw the stars aligning and said we should do a thing together. And in fact, I'll be spending some time with John and Bobby this week, so it'll be fun. And Leland and I are going to be doing work in the future together. Josh, you brought so much to the party. So what is the future? Again, Jeff, I say, you and I were talking 2 years ago when the world was shutting down, and we said, well, we've got each other. So this is what I guess, as a foundation, we are way above where we were 2 years ago. Now, what does the future hold? We are in conversation about what does a series of a property look like? What would people find interesting about this topic? Now, so a lot of things are to be determined. We are at that 2 years ago conversation, Jeff. I don't know, but it's going to be awesome.
Now, there is am I right to think that I had heard that there's a final product on this as well called a documentary that will really surmise all this?
That was the original thought.
Mm-hmm.
And again, just like most of our original concepts, we've had to pivot. We've had to be agile. We've had to do where again, who wants to watch something? We're in the development of where are the eyeballs? Who are the eyeballs? Who's going to pay for what? What's it cost? So the documentary is a concept, but a series is how we are currently consuming our media more, and where the new distribution platforms, Netflix, Hulu's, Pluses, whatever plus, that's the new how we consume our media, entertainment. So I don't have a absolute answer. John wants to know, where's the money? It's like, this is a creative project. It might not be something you want to invest in for a financial gain, but maybe you do. And we're determining that right now.
Yeah. I think it was, the perfect event at the perfect time. And some might say and assume it was the perfect location because of the Vegas label. But none of us went in, well, not none of us, I think a couple may have, but most of us never hit Vegas, as far as the Strip and gambling and stuff like that. There was just too much to do, but also way too much community that you didn't want to miss out on, and so it was this 2 years of starving for real community with an event to give us an excuse and a great guy like John to support. I mean, I just don't know, with that 2 year, pandemic, if there ever would have been a way to get this kind of talent and volunteerism at an event like that without that hunger moment of 2 years, truly, and that was the big drive. And so I'd like to, and not that I'm wrapping things up, but I want to make sure that we hear from Jeff Keithley. And I learned I'm a Jeff. And most Jeffs, if you don't know it, a lot of Jeffs that I come across will say, commonly in my world, it's like, hey, Jeffrey. Like, most people don't call us Jeffries except other Jeffs. And I asked Jeff about that. I said, my question was, are you a Jeffrey? Because he's one F Jeff, J-E-F, right? Little did I know, and I thought I was right. and he says, no, I am in fact a Jeffrey. And so Jeff, if you wouldn't mind clarifying where that came from, it was so cool. And then expound on, just kind of anything that you have in your memories of the event. That would be great.
Sure. No problem at all. So many years ago, I was in like elementary school, and one of my friends' name was Jay. Jay, I can't even remember his last name now, but his name was Jay. And he started spelling his name just Jay. Instead of J-A-Y, it was just J. I was like, man, minimal effort. I like that. Never have to worry about it. It's simple to you can't misspell it. So just the logic behind it was you don't say Jeff, right? The English language is kind of stupid. So we had all these double letters and stuff. Just like on Tuomo's name, you don't say, I can't pronounce your last name right, but Kulamoa, right? So it's just that kind of same concept. So it was just Jeff, make it short, J-E-F, simple, Jeff with one F. And then in the most recent versions, somebody said, oh, Jeff with one F, so you only had one F to give. Okay, got it. And so that was where the latter iterations have happened. But yeah, it was a good time being out there in the desert. I am still digging stuff out of places I didn't know it got. And yeah, it's definitely very time consuming. That part of it has been just cleaning up things. My ex is still in terrible condition. It's been raining on and off here a little bit in Texas, so I haven't had a chance really to get deep inside it. And I'm actually about to, in the next couple of days, hit the road and head down to Florida to do some shows. So I'm probably not even going to go too much further than it is already. I can't believe you got that little camera back after that little tussle. That's pretty nasty. And I felt so bad for Noah as we were getting hit with all this stuff. It was definitely a lot more dust than I anticipated. And I'm 30 miles from the beach, so I get down to the beach every once in a while. And one of my friends was shooting down there, and we had lunch, dinner last night. And he was like, "Oh yeah, I was down at the beach. I've got sand." I'm like, "You don't have an idea at all what real sand is like, and blowing around, and because that silt is really what it is on the lake bed is just so fine, and it just sticks to everything.
It finds itself in every crevice, like you pop your back hatch up, and it's just that whole channel is just loaded.
That was the worst of my car. Well, actually, no, the worst is where my feet were and Doug's feet were. But I had these really good mats. They're not the all rubber, but it's a rubber type mat. But I took those out, hosed them down. I washed them 3 times, and they're still just looks like it still has sand on it.
I was going to say, an air
Jeff,
compressor
can you talk about
was
Doug
not
Ferguson?
the whole solution.
I'll be glad to talk about Doug Ferguson. What do you want to know? I've known him for a few years now.
What was his job next to you in that closed environment called him?
Well, at first he was going to be punching the show. He ended up just holding my hand a lot. I don't know if it was uncomfortableness or whatever. He just kept groping me over here. Now Doug actually punched the show. He punched it on because of space. I didn't want to bring out one of my big controllers. We were using the TriCaster 2 Elite and VisVector Plus, which is effectively the same thing, but just software based. And we were using that, and I really was planning on bringing one of my Squirrel Hoys, but I ended up having to give it to a client at the last minute. So we ended up just switching on a Stream Deck and did the programming through Central Control. And Central Control took care of all the administration, both for the local and also on the remote stuff up in the cloud that we were going to use. So that's basically how we did it. Punching the button style. All the sources came into the car on the Model X. Comes through our frunk, which is the front trunk. So it comes through the frunk. It was converted into NDI at either the camera position or is at the actual trunk. We had a couple sources that came in through HDSDI, and then we converted to NDI in the trunk. The front then goes to the back over fiber. I have actually 24 fiber lines that are running from the front of the car to the back. Because, everybody needs fiber, right? You got to have good fiber in your diets. So we have 24 lines, and the reason I did 24 is because the TAC-12, our Tactical 12, is what we normally use in the world, and the 24 was like $6 more. So I was like, oh, well, if I have one break, I don't want to take the car apart to pull this cable through it, so just going to go for the bigger one. And I've never had a problem with them, but it was a planning thing. But we basically only used 2 of those fibers to send audio and video from the front of the car to the back. Then once we hit, and that's over a 10 gig link over the two between, we had 2 switches in the front, and then we had a reverse in the back. We had another switch that reversed it back to regular copper off the fiber. And then we had 3 Dells of our workstations, and then the TriCaster 2. And that, I mean, honestly, that's a normal setup for us. It was nothing different. That's a normal week for us.
But normal used to be a 35-foot semi, and you packed all of that in today's world.
Yeah, I've heard of those people. I've heard. Yeah.
Back in 2008.
Yeah. I mean,
tell me, do you run the fiber through the chassis of the Tesla?
It actually, you can't go. Well, I was going to punch a hole in the firewall and go underneath the carpet and go back, because we normally do it in most cars if we needed to have something kind of protected. But we found a channel underneath the rocker panel on the right side, and so it actually goes down through more or less through the hood, down underneath, and then around the corner, and then up and down. And this fiber, I mean, I can't even tell you how it's thinner than this is a good cable. All right, now I've got big hands, but this is the cable. This is about how much space I needed. And then I also have 2 Cat 6s that are running front to back that are STP. And so that's shielded twisted pair. And those are just there for backup purposes, really.
I haven't seen this on any of the Tesla websites. I think you need
it's not a drop down. It's not on a drop down. You have to specifically request it. And if anybody here has a Tesla and wants it modified to have a little extra, just let me know. We've got screwdrivers in a shop. We're ready to go.
And punching through that firewall doesn't require anything from InfoSec, does it?
No. It does require a nice step bit, though, and a DeWalt. It does require. Yeah, you have to talk to DeWalt. That's for one thing.
So, how many total camera inputs did we have? Did we have 8? Was it 2 drones and 5 or 6 on the ground?
We landed at 8. That jackass director of ours was asking for more at the last minute. Of course.
That's
yeah. But yeah, we landed at 8. We actually, on the TriCaster 2, we could have handled 32. So as far as inputs, I had more than enough inputs to be able to do more. We really honestly ran out of time. We could have had another day and fixed our internet issues in a day ahead, and then had graphics sorted. Then we could have added in some extra. But I mean, we had plenty of angles. There was no issues and shortage of angles. And another thing too is in our world, in the live sports world that I live in majority of the time, it's about the production level. Is you can do a lot of production with minimal if you know how to do production. And so it's about coaching your cameras. It's about, making sure the camera operators are carrying the load. You're not telling them what to do every shot. You should never do that. You should let them just do their thing. And to her, to really kind of give the kudos to Lana, Doug's wife, who shoots a lot for Doug, with Doug on events and stuff. She's definitely an accomplished camera operator. She did a fantastic job at carrying the story. Right beside her was my little boy, who was shooting also, and he's definitely shot a few hours of video in his life. So, so having people that have been behind the camera and know what to look for and framing and things like that, you don't have to work near as hard as a director, and that makes things a lot easier too.
Yeah. And everything, you mentioned it, but from the cameras, tripoded and handheld, they were all SDI out, and they eventually went through a bird dog to NDI converters?
No, they were actually HDMI. We originally were going to do this all in 4K. So the only cameras, the cameras that Noah had, they had both HDMI and SDI, but the SDI would only do 3G, so only 1080p. And at the last minute, because of our starved internet application, we just didn't have enough to do 4K. So we bounced everything and the whole workflow back to 1080p. And by doing that, that gave us a little bit more choices. And so I had a mixture of both HD SDI and also HDMI to be able to send into NDI. But at every camera position, we flipped it back into NDI, and except for one. I can't remember what camera that was coming over SDI, but it was like a close one to the car. So that's why we did run fiber out or Cat5 out. But that's everything is NDI going through the car. 100%.
And the handheld camera was wireless.
That's the one. Yeah, that was the wireless was Teradek. It was a Teradek 750 Bolt 750. So the range is roughly around 750 feet is what they rate it to. We easily hit 500 going out to the launch site and beyond. We didn't start losing it until John was off mudding through all the grass and everything that's past the lake bed. So on his search party. But yeah, that was pretty much it as far as the only SDI. So we took SDI out of that camera receiver, the wireless receiver, and came into the car. That was easiest.
And the drones were live footage, right?
That was all live, and
wireless.
That was going. It's wireless into their actual controllers, and they're using the smart controllers. The smart controller has HDMI out, and so we take the HDMI out of that, and then put that into also NDI converters. And we actually ended up. I think we used all BirdDog on this one as far as conversion, but I use a mixture of BirdDog, KiloView, NewTek, Magewell. I use them all. I'll probably land more on the Magewells for most of my stuff is Magewell, but a few KiloViews here and there too.
Very cool. Leland, question?
Not so much maybe a question as just an acknowledgement. As one who probably had the biggest FOMO of everyone out there because of my relationship with John in the past and knowing how much he's been a Rocketeer all the years I've known him. John, I don't know if you caught my broadcast yesterday or not that I did on Facebook, but I just wanted to congratulate you because I've been watching you doing this thing for years. And to have this team, like Keenan said, $500,000 worth of assets that were brought in to help you acknowledge, just kind of experience your dream, something I've watched you want to do all these years. I'm just happy that you've found the team that came together. I wish I could have been part of it, but honestly, for me, I was so scattered on other things, I couldn't have dedicated the time I needed to be a part of that project. So I just wanted to let it go and let you guys do what you did with it. And I got to say, it's one of the best productions that OH has ever done. So great job, guys.
Thank you, sir. Josh Kaufman, I know you were there. I know you're not there on site, but behind the scenes forever. But I'm not personally familiar with your set of probably very wide responsibilities and contributions. Let us know what your world was like.
Sure. Well, I got involved with the project just as it was starting to snowball. It started off as something very simple, and as we tend to do in the office hours community, it's like, well, we could do it a little bit better. We could do a few extra things. We could upgrade this to other things. And so I started helping out Sky on the production team to arrange the content, the different contributions, our interviews that made up some of the roll-in contributions there, our sort of run of show, putting together, a lot of people had different ideas about things, and we had eventually siphoned everything down into what we had resources and time and what worked and who was available. So just shaking out the different options that we had to put into a usable show. So nice, really enjoyed working with a lot of the professionals that were just volunteering their time, and different ones that were able to pick up the pieces whenever we needed to fill in a gap with different areas. So yeah, really exceptional working on this project with the OH team.
Jeff, and that was the thing that Preto and I kept talking about. Zoom made all this possible. Josh is in Pittsburgh. John's in Vegas. Yeah. We're all over the world. So, the thing that Zoom has enabled us to do is these huge projects that these wouldn't have been possible several years ago. It's unbelievable to bring Josh in, who's a guy sitting in Pittsburgh, who's helping build content for Sky and deliver it all via Zoom. So it was totally awesome to see.
Yeah, years ago I worked for Citrix, and we had a saying way back then, is, you know, anywhere, anytime, any device, right? And Zoom, I don't think they say that, but they certainly could. I mean, you know, it's one of those things. I remember, producer groups and friends that I talked to, and you know, a lot of us at the beginning. And the beginning of what? The beginning of what was when the customers started telling us that we had to do it on Zoom, and that pissed a lot of us off, right? It really, you know, we weren't really ready for that and so forth. But the fact of the matter is the benefits are, you know, it's kind of like, what are they saying? Why are they saying that? And it's because Zoom has done so much work for us. You know, in this case, this project, you know, it didn't matter where I was, whether I was in Tuomo's trailer or another, or in John's house, or in a car on a mobile device. Somebody had that Zoom meeting up and open, and there was always somebody there, whether it's Jeffrey or Josh or others. And it's true. It was the party line that was always there. And I'm guessing Sky. I mean, I saw Sky do a lot of, you know, live editing and package building and so forth. Did you push out to those guys and then they socialized it? Was that the flow? Because I didn't see that.
We've done that in post and after the event. We just did not have the bandwidth. But I want to just continue to say thank you to Josh, because he was the pioneer in the laboratory of a collection of experiences that had never been done before, including the bird and the opportunity that Josh brought, because he was willing to continue to pursue the Australia team, encouraging and inspiring them to bring in, as he called, skits. And while I said, we don't do skits, and it's like, well, Josh brought entertainment with people that wanted to do something together, and using the medium and the conduit of Zoom is awesome. And again, Josh, you made that happen. So do not be sorry that maybe something didn't make it, but because of you, the rest were able to move forward. So again, thank you.
Yeah, and also Noah, he's not here, but he worked on our team too for production, putting together the different drop-ins, roll-ins, and crafting the show. He's actually just getting on an airplane too. I just spoke to him, but yeah, integral part of him. Sky described himself as the cat herder on this project, so we were like the cat recruiters, I guess you could say.
Very much so.
I'm going to I'm just dragging files into vMix on the fly that are catching my eye, just to bring a little flavor to, and this is just my, you know, kind of some raw behind the scenes stuff that I've got, but stuff that kind of struck me, and I talked about this a little bit. I didn't talk about the first one, so I'm going to make him the last one. All right, so I'm just going to manually run these through. There's four clips.
John, the cost of something is, how many times did Jeff have to wash his car to keep his wife happy because she would not have liked it?
Best part of the trip for me was returning the rented car, as filthy as it was, and just saying,
it was cold. and this is Robert. This is Eric's son, and mealtime was over. There's something was still cooking in that. Oh God, what do they call them?
Dutch oven.
Dutch ovens, and but he was kind of snoozing, and I just had to catch it, because he deservingly wiped out. You know, I mean they were. I mean, our call time on Saturday was 5 a.m. and I don't know what time they got started, to have breakfast ready for us. Not when we arrived at 5. I think it was a little bit later, but still, it was a huge task and undertaking. So.
He had coffee for the project manager at 4 a.m.
Oh my goodness!
Saturday was freezing cold.
Yeah, we were up at 4 a.m. for our call time on the lake bed. The talent didn't arrive till 5.
And I didn't have a sweater, and so David Ice Brady gave me his pullover, and that saved my behind.
Eric going to town for the first time, did a killer job. There's Ash,
awesome,
running cameras. Yeah,
he thought he'd catch
cameras
that
were
you guys running?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump in there, but there was a lot of talk.
Sony FS5s, I think.
Yeah, there were FS5s and one FS7, I believe, or 9. There was one bastard job.
And in case you were wondering, that sweatshirt that I lent John Preto actually was desert sand color, so it didn't get filthy. But
that was very smart.
Everything got filthy. Oh my goodness. Let's see if we can find some stress on our rocket builder. I'm not sure if this clip shows it all or not. It gets a little more intense, but that's kind of a cool.
And again, Jeff, that concept of the apex that some people call luck is when planning and opportunity meet.
There's Roscoe.
And we were very lucky because we didn't know we were going to be doing this 2 years ago, but that opportunity showed up, and we had been preparing. We brought the tools that we had, and again, the energy and the practice will get better. But it was awesome.
Sky, to that point of opportunity, for me personally, that was the part of the reason for swinging out to the desert for this. When I flew back to New York, I landed at JFK, and I drove back for my first day at the office again. So this was a good pressure relief valve of the past 2 years, as well as an opportunity to meet everybody in person for me, and that meant the world, So for anybody out there who's, just wondering how they can get involved in it, just get involved. Just put the first foot forward, the rest will follow through, and it's a really cool experience.
Just be prepared to be blamed by Preto for starting this whole snowball operation for the rest of your life. So, sorry. Glad you guys enjoyed it.
Never going to live it down.
Never going to live it down, ever.
The X. Quite the setup. So, Jeff, are you glad you had the X because of the dust factor, or would you have rather brought another vehicle because of the dust factor?
It really, either any vehicle would have been fine. It had been tracked in the van. It had been tracked in a trailer. I am very glad I didn't bring the bus, though. That for sure would have been a nightmarish thing because unbeknownst to some of us, the roads getting to the lake bed weren't exactly what you would consider flat all the way. And some of those roads going out, especially when we were leaving at the crack of middle of night, you were just guessing where you were going. And
totally.
You got there was some
I think we went out 3 different ways, one each night. It was pretty crazy. We had some good eats. That night was Kansas City barbecue. So, yeah.
I got to run. We'll see you guys. Congrats to the team. Awesome job. Hope to be part of one of these years, I'm sure. See you.
Yeah. Ray, you've got your hand up, bud.
I want to ask John Preto, he was involved and certainly aware of all of the production that was going on. Was it in your way? How were you able to separate the two, since these are all friends and they were all involved in what they were doing and you knew what was going on? How distracting was it?
Thank you, Ray. I appreciate that. So I was kind of prepared for those interviews because it was on part of the rundown. And so we went through the rundown several days ahead of time, and I knew they were going to come to me. If I didn't know, it would be a different deal. But since we did rehearsals on the rundowns, I know they were coming to me, so I was prepared. And probably more important, Perry and I, my rocket building buddy, and I had this rocket prepared for the launch. And so there was very little work that we need to do on the lake bed to get it finished. And usually that's what causes the anxiety, is trying to get the rocket. And still we were 45 minutes over. We had all of the parachutes and everything already done. The rocket motor was done. We just had to do the telemetry, which is the last piece of the rocket put together. And so doing the rehearsals and knowing that they were coming to me and knowing what I was going to say at that time, like they asked me what the probability of success was, and I said 100%. So I got lucky on that one. But being prepared on the rehearsal made the difference.
Very cool. That's kind of cool that you asked that question, Ray, because I asked John that question just the other day, and it was like, how distracting was that? So, yeah, it was tough. Did a great job, and preparation, I think, kept them cool. But yeah, those two were masters. I got a lot of close-up footage of them doing that final build, and him and Perry were just amazing, and it was fun. I mean, Colin launched. We got a nice. Oh goodness, I don't know if I have the video. I do have it somewhere. I just don't know which one it is. We did a night launch of his rocket.
Jack did a night launch, and Perry did a day launch.
Was it Jack? Yeah. It was Jack. It was Jack's night launch. Collins was a day launch,
which was his level 2 certification.
I think this might be the night launch.
The night launch is amazing. If you have it, it's great to watch.
I do. Oh, here it is. There it is.
It uses what's called a Sparky motor, which has magnesium in it, so it's like a firework.
Ray, can you spotlight my video?
I don't see it. There you go.
And that was cool. And there's a lot, just from my point of view, there was a lot behind that. And it was, Jack, who is a fantastic drone pilot and had all the confidence in the world in what he was doing, when he was starting to get pressed by a couple of folks to launch his rocket, he turned into a nervous little boy, and it was super cool. And it took several hours for one to convince, and then to start working on it, and so forth. But he finally, with some help and encouragement and so forth, got it done. And then the sun was down, and ended up being a nice night launch, and it was quite cool. I was lucky to practice it. Being behind the scenes, there were times with other people's rockets that I didn't know who they were, to just sit back, lean back in a folding chair, and I had a 70-200. That's all I brought, and just handhold these launches and get used to, that speed to a degree. Not that everyone flies the same speed, but to just feel it. And was lucky to capture, the night pretty decently. Collins kind of flew up and sideways, and got a lot of that one as well, and got John's. I don't. No, John's is here somewhere.
Yeah, it worked out in the end, but yes, I demonstrated actually the problem that John solved with the 25 pounds of buckshot. I failed to utilize that Well, we didn't have the buckshot at the time, but that would have solved my problem as well. In my case, I was limited by the size of the motor that was available to me. For a level 2 certification, you're required to fly a larger motor than for a level 1 certification. They're numerically defined in alphabetically defined, and every letter is double the thrust of the previous letter. And so for a level 2, you could fly an I or J motor. They didn't have any I motors, which is what you would normally fly for a certification flight. So I ended up flying a J, which was way too large for the 3-pound rocket that I was flying. What I'm trying to find at the moment is the on-rocket camera footage that I have up on YouTube. I don't know if you'd be able to play it, even if I could find it at the moment, but it came out very, very well.
Cool. Very cool. Here, let me kick off these two little segments. One was what John did and accomplished required exception by the FAA, and so we captured that. And that is we had clearance for what, 7,000 feet.
Correct. Oh, you have audio on that? Or am I not hearing it?
Hang on. Here, let me pump up the gain on this a bit.
I know, this is Kendall Reed from Tripoli Vegas Rocket Club. I'm requesting a high altitude window, 15,000 AGL.
So better than double.
We can start now if you're good with it.
Okay. All right, how long you gonna need?
15 minutes, or I'll call you when it's at 7,000.
Like 5 minutes?
Yeah.
All right, yeah, you're good to go right now.
All right, sounds good.
All right, thank you.
I'll call.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
On its way up to nearly 14,000 feet.
You better be sending me that footage there, Jeff.
It's all this on Google Drive. I'll put the link in chat before we leave here.
Yeah, I'd like to show another angle of that, if that's okay.
Right now?
So, yeah.
Right
now.
Yeah.
This comes from This
was Jack's drone. Jack's drone.
No, it wasn't Jack's drone. It was
no, it was
Chris's drone.
No, it was not. It was Jack's drone.
It was Jack's drone. Okay.
Because it's too high to be Chris's. Yeah, it's 1250.
This is the other angle that we got.
I've never seen this. That's awesome. That is incredible. That's awesome.
And we also have another angle. Oh, we have a few other angles, including Bill. Bill published a great angle from underneath the rocket going up, and that was pretty amazing. So what we're gonna do is hold tight. We're gonna actually give you a recut part of the video, including a couple different angles, so you can actually see the rocket go up. And then within the next few weeks, you should see that up on OH Space Live. YouTube.com/OH Space Live, which is the official YouTube, or OHSpace.com.
Super cool. Glad to hear that. And see, I thought it was video. It's not. It's a photo on the last day. A couple of them. Let me grab them.
Can we get in John Huddleston's question?
Oh, yeah. Go ahead, John. Sorry, I'm just not looking there as much as I should. Thank you.
No problem. I was just going to say, John, do you want to show a little bit of what you look like on the Monterey stage?
Oh, yeah, that'd be great. You got it.
I got it queued up.
Cool.
Oh, that's great. Thanks,
Yeah.
Jeff.
Go ahead. I've got sharing turned on for the moment.
Okay. So in working with John just before this, I think this was this the trying to think how many days before launch.
This was Wednesday.
Well, we could see the numbers on there.
It was the day
we
we
were in the
picked the rocket
Monterey Convention Center, and I said, "There's this group I'd like." We just finished doing some demos and some prep for another show, and I said, "Hey, do you have time to call into this group?" And that's when we called in, totally ad hoc. Jack was the only one to know OH Space, and then he put out the call, and essentially, originally, if I go back early on into this, I was doing something with my university cap and gown. There's Jack, and they call up, and then once we get the word that there's a van with the rocket in it. And I'm trying to get to that picture, John, if I can find it. Getting closer. Yeah, there we go. So now we're able to, in the studio, watch the actual vehicle going forward. There you are. And this models how we could have all our viewers on the stage. But I thought it was really pretty clever that just ad hoc, we were able to pull John in. There's the co-owners of Immersive Studios who built the studio. And then John gave him the address for his satellite launch. I mean, his launch there with VidRock. Totally unrehearsed, but it was sort of fun. So I could see that when we do the next one, we'll have crowds like this watching live.
Nice.
So I just thought I'd share that with you.
Yeah.
And I guess, John, some other things. We got the safety tray and
yep.
There were some other fun things. We talked about education things, and it was hard to get educators to buy into it without having seen or looked at it. But the groups that I'm working with were pretty excited about what they saw. They might have to worry about clean show every once in a while, but anyway, it was fun to watch you, and congratulations to your whole team. And
thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Hopefully next time we'll be able to use the studio in Monterey. And,
yes, sir.
And get 7,000 people watching it in real time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was blown away when I saw that. I came in the next morning to John's place. I'm like, I didn't even know that was planned. He goes, it wasn't. I'm like, that was cool. So, yeah, nice stuff. So
it's a good way of buying people into it. I mean, I talked to the people about the project earlier on, and it just didn't resonate. But then I said, well, we had a moment, we did it, and the enthusiasm that the whole production team had really played into to the owners of the company. So I'm sure that if, when John goes to space, that they'll want to be part of the party.
That's awesome. Sky, what you got?
Well, Ray talked about, John, were you expecting this? And I think it's that management of expectations and being prepared for what was going to be happening in the moment. But I learned a lot from Jack that brought his military background of being agile, being adaptable, but also managing expectations for the audience. Remember, if you're doing a broadcast, early days, I said, John, is this just a thing about going into the desert and blowing stuff up? That can be a fun thing. And if we want to video it for our own little people group, that's great. But once you go outside that, you now have a responsibility. So my offering was, if it doesn't blow up, we might go really high. And that modification of that tagline got accepted because it's, again, managing the audience expectations. But because they were there, we couldn't have written some of the tension moments that happened because the cameras were rolling and the fuse didn't light. You can't write that stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
But it didn't blow up. It did not blow up.
It did not blow up. I don't know if we had any. I forgot to have it ready, but I have video footage for people that were there of that rocket landing in our camp between the RV and the tent, and it was quite cool. and then what was it? Perry had that photo of that ballistic black one that I mean, it sunk deep, like 3/4 of the entire rocket ended up in the if you call it soil or dirt.
And Bill Davis has the footage of them coming out with with a shovel to dig it out of the desert.
Oh my gosh, to try to get it out.
We're collecting all that footage to get it into a story. It's hard.
Jeff, I just want to make it noted that you guys think it's cool. The safety officer was really freaking out that things are falling in our camp and rockets are. You guys were like, "That's so cool," and poor Jack and I are having PTSD.
It happened to land literally in a 4-5 foot alleyway between an RV and a tent. It didn't hit anything other than the ground, but that was super lucky as far as where it hit.
Yeah, it about took out our chef, his assistant, and our Steadicam operator if it would have moved 4 feet the other way.
No doubt. I'm gonna wrap things up on this topic unless anybody has anything else to add. It's just been a fun, I mean, it's testimony of just how friendly the community is and everything that went into this and the bonds and so forth that have come from it. I'll throw this last one out. Literally before they got in their vehicles to hit the road, that's what it was all about, right? Is just, just bonding and friendships. And my dog with her tongue out, I saw that for the first time. But anyways, it was just such a good time and memories forever for sure. And
Jeff, I have a video queued up we could play out on, and I'd like to say a few closing words.
You bet. Go,
Mr. Widgren came to my house, was in my garage. I tried to log into Zoom Test Kitchen. I don't know, the first or second or third week you guys were on. And I got stuck in some waiting room somewhere. I'm like, darn it, they don't like me. I'm still mad at you for not letting me on Zoom Test Kitchen.
It was like within the first 5 minutes of me arriving and meeting this guy, like, I'm still pissed off at you. I'm like, what?
Leland and I have done a lot of work together over the year. We met 7-8 years ago, Leland and I. So Leland's a great guy. He's a hard worker and brought me over to Zoom Test Kitchen. I tried to log in and couldn't get in. But Mr. Widgren, I immediately hit it off with him. He drove me home a couple of nights. He's very thoughtful. He's very articulate. He's a fun and nice guy. And I hope that you guys all get an opportunity to meet this gentleman in person. He's a great, great gentleman, over the top as far as reaching out to the community and available for anything that we needed to have done. Mr. Widgren, I appreciate all your help.
Thanks, John.
And value our friendship. And I can play this video right now.
Very cool. Here it goes. That's awesome. 14,000.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it.
Oh, you bet. Thanks for giving us the reason. And it was forever. And it wouldn't be right in the kitchen if I didn't say, hey, does anybody have anything Zoom related that they want to hang for? I'm willing to do it. But I don't want to wrap up without at least making the offer. Kirsten, Josh, David, anybody have any particular Zoom things? So we'll keep it a rocket segment, and loved it. I really enjoyed just the easy, fun, conversation. So, gonna wrap things up the way I usually do here, and thank everybody for coming. Maybe we'll see you next Friday at 3:00 Eastern here in the Zoom Test Kitchen.